Welcome candidates and welcome community members who are joining us this evening. My name is Clark Lovelace. I'm Executive Director of the Brevard Transylvania Chamber of Commerce. We are the organization who coordinates this event as part of our role to connect the business community, local government, and the general public here in Transylvania County. We would like to thank a few individuals and organizations related to the event. But first, I actually want to thank those of you who are joining us on our live stream, or I guess to the future folks who will be joining us by watching a recording. Obviously, I hope you share my sentiment that local and state elections are really an important part of the fabric of our great country. And we really do appreciate that you are spending time here with us this evening. I also want to give some very specific thanks. John Lanier, who is serving as moderator today. We are happy and excited to have him here with us. As I'm sure many of you know, he spent many years as editor of the Transylvania Times and has an extensive and thorough knowledge on many of the important and key local issues. And we appreciate that he has been with us as a part of this process and of his role this evening. I also want to thank WSQL Radio, who has worked with us in advertising and promoting this event and being here with us this evening. The Transylvania Times has also provided both pre and post, and will provide post event information and helped us with advertising ahead of time for this event. We appreciate that. I also want to thank Willow Walker, who is our member services coordinator at the Chamber of Commerce. She was focused on coordinating this event. We appreciate all the layers that come with having this as a Zoom event. And I thank the candidates for their time and patience, and Willow for her coordination of this unique event. So the purpose of tonight's event is for citizens of our community to be able to learn about the candidates. We all have roles this evening. I think first and foremost, I'll say ours as host is to be fair, unbiased, and provide an informative event in a reasonable amount of time. We commit to doing that. For the candidates, it is to provide honest answers to the questions that we ask, to follow the rules as we have already communicated and will highlight in just a minute, and to be respectful of the moderator and the other candidates who are involved. And for the audience, it's to listen. It is to behave appropriately if we were in person, with clapping and hooting and hollering. In this case, it will be with comments on social media, but it's also to vote. Please vote if you're eligible, if you're a citizen of Brevard. It's one of the most important things you can do as a citizen. Please get out there and vote. With that, I will turn it over to our moderator, John Lanier, who's going to review the rules for the forum, and then we're going to get started. Again, thank you all who are here with us.
Yes. Thank you, Clark. Appreciate it. Took me a few seconds to get everything unmuted there. Tonight's candidates forum will consist of candidate panels for the City of Brevard City Council and City of Brevard Mayor. There will be no session for the town of Rosman Alderman, since candidate attendance could not be confirmed for that race. A document listing the candidates for each race is available online at brevardnchamber.org. Tonight's procedure for each panel will be as follows. First, I will read each candidate's biography. Then each candidate will be asked to provide a 1-minute opening statement about who they are and why they are running. I will then ask pre-selected questions that were compiled by the Chamber's Governmental Affairs Committee with my participation as moderator. The questions were based on submissions from the general public. All attempts were made to select unbiased questions that would result in informative responses. The questions have not been shared with anyone. Please note that we are not able to accept additional questions from the public via Facebook. A maximum of 1.5 minutes will be designated for each response to questions asked. Chamber staff will hold up a yellow card to indicate 15 seconds of time remaining and a red card to indicate time is up. Candidates may finish the current sentence with a few words, but will be muted by the host should they attempt to continue. Some of the questions will be the same for each of the two panels, and some will be specific to just one panel. Our goal is for each session to be roughly 45 minutes. The number of questions asked will depend on the length of the responses to each question. I will ask a different candidate to respond first with each question. Each candidate will have an opportunity to respond. The order of candidates was created randomly prior to the event. Following all of the questions, each candidate will be given 1.5 minutes to summarize their platform. This is addressed specifically to you candidates. Please indicate that you can see the time card being shown now by raising your hand. Mr. Morrow, can you see it? Okay, thank you. If you cannot see the time card holder, please change your view from speaker to gallery view and move between screens if needed, until you see the time card being shown. Raise your hand once the time card is visible. We've done that. All right, the moderator and chamber staff may also use the chat function to communicate, so please keep an eye out for communications by chat. Do all of the questions, do all the candidates understand the rules for this evening? Yes, Mr. Jones. Everybody understands? Okay. All right, let's get started. First with the candidate biographies. Bill Bailey. Candidate Bill Bailey graduated from Spruce Creek High School in Daytona Beach, Florida, and attended Freed-Hardeman University in Henderson, Tennessee. He also served in the Marine Corps for 4 years. He moved to Brevard in 1997. He currently works as a fitness coach at the Fitness Factory and has been a fitness coach for 30 years, working with clients of all ages. In addition, Mr. Bailey served on the board of the Transylvania County Little League for 10 years and in the local jail ministry for 6 years. He continues to serve with the Transylvania County Honor Guard and is currently the board chair of the Center for Women, where he has served for several years. 7 years, excuse me. Bill has 2 children, a daughter named Peyton and a son named Dawson. Next candidate is Aaron Baker. Candidate Aaron Baker graduated from Riverview High School in Sarasota, Florida, before graduating from Brevard College and completing postgraduate work at Johns Hopkins University in Baltimore, Maryland. He is currently employed as a senior marketing manager at Oscar Blues Brewery. Mr. Baker also serves on the board of directors for the North Carolina Craft Brewers Guild and served on the board of directors for the Brevard Transylvania Chamber of Commerce and Transylvania County Tourism from 2014 to 2020. He currently serves as a chairperson for the Transylvania Always Committee of Transylvania County Tourism. Aaron has 1 son named Henry, who is 9 years old. Next candidate is Kevin Jones. Candidate Kevin Jones graduated from Benjamin Cardozo High School before attending Columbia University. Although he is currently retired, he worked as a business consultant and financial advisor during his professional career. He is a founding partner of Equitably Brewing and is an investor at Ware, a company located in Asheville. Mr. Jones served on the Brevard Board of Adjustment and as chairman for the Transylvania County ABC Board. He also volunteers at the Brevard Music Center, helping with the scholarship raffle, hospitality, and seating.
Peter's going crazy.
Kevin is married to Elda Brown and has a daughter named Jessica and a grandson named Lincoln. The 4th candidate this evening is Mac Morrow. Candidate Mac Morrow graduated from Christ School in Arden and Clemson University. He is currently employed as the general manager at Kier Manufacturing, in addition to serving on the Brevard City Council, where he was first appointed in 1986. He served as mayor pro tem from 1990 to 1995 and again in 2005, since 2005. Excuse me. He chairs or co-chairs the City Council Parks and the Trails and Recreations Committee and the City Council Finance and Personnel Committee. He also serves as a board member for the Transylvania County Library Foundation and Historical Society and is a lifelong member at St. Philip Church. In addition to several service awards, including American Legion of Merit, he also received the Order of the Longleaf Pine and an Alaska Community Service Award.
Like to use it.
Mac has been married to Veronica Clayton Morrow for 49 years. They have a daughter named Jennifer and two grandchildren, Mary Grace and Bella. Those are the biographies for the 4 candidates for City Council. We will now begin with the questions. Remember, you have a minute and a half to respond. You do not need to take all of that time, but you are more than welcome to. Sure. Okay, yes, we're going to wait for just a moment because of a technical difficulty with the live stream.
Or
Yeah, I don't know that I can stop posting without shutting the whole thing down.
just the hosting we.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Let me see. Yeah.
Stop for now. Sometimes my computer drives itself, which is why I don't like it. It's still driving itself.
If I close it,
Hey, folks, this is Clark. The live stream wasn't working. One of the computers that we have here, we have 3 in the room in various roles. I think we're close to resolving it, so give me just a moment. Okay, I think you're going to have Willow coming to you live from Clark's computer, so we'll make that change.
sorry for the delay.
Okay, I think we resolved that technical issue. And my mistake, we need to have the opening statements first. So I apologize for that error. So we will go in alphabetical order. Mr. Bailey, you have 1 minute for your opening statement.
Thank you, Mr. Lanier. I just want to thank everyone that's part of putting this on. And I know our time is short. So as an opening statement, I just want to say I'm grateful for the opportunity to live in this town. I think a lot of people desire small towns like this, and Brevard has a lot of desirable things about it, which makes a lot of us residents want to live here and just keep seeing it thriving and growing. I was never thought about getting into any kind of political position, but I've served in a variety of positions in the community, and it's afforded me to meet a wonderful variety of people all across the board, from retirees to kids in sports and school because of my kids, and now they're young adults. And so just being able to see all that and being possibly a part of helping Brevard continue to grow in the right direction, I'm looking forward for that opportunity. So I thank you for tonight's event. Thank you.
Mr. Baker, your opening statements.
Yeah, I want to thank the Chamber of Commerce for hosting tonight. Clark and Willow do such a great job. Thanks for persevering and doing this tonight despite all the challenges. I'm running for City Council because I care about this place, Brevard. I moved here to attend Brevard College 16 years ago, and I stayed because I really fell in love with what this town was all about. Our city's facing some big new challenges, and I believe we need some new ideas, new leadership, and new energy to meet those challenges. We're in the midst of a housing crisis, and the impact is being felt by workers and by employers, by renters, by homeowners, by all of our neighbors. I want to improve our basic infrastructure: water and sewer, roads, sidewalks and pathways, stormwater management. These things all need addressing. And I want a local government that is better connected to its citizens. City government has an obligation to engage its citizens and communicate with them so that we can meet these challenges together. So I'm excited for this forum and to talk about the solutions together. So thank you.
Mr. Jones, your opening statement. You're still muted, Mr. Jones.
Hi, sorry for the technical glitch there.
That's quite all right.
Tonight, we're going to talk probably a little bit about affordable housing, about business development, about attracting jobs, medical supplies and infrastructure. And I've got a spoiler alert. I think every one of us is pretty well informed. Every one of us is pretty motivated and likes Brevard, and every one of us, I think, is pretty smart. So what am I thinking when I stay up at night and I wake up going, all this stuff is so much? And before I start to worry too much, I decide that there's a matter of trust here. So, and I'm not talking about trust in me, I'm talking about trust in the employees and management of Brevard, trusting the past council members as well as the current ones and the ones that are being elected. And stop, my time is up.
Thank you. And Mr. Morrow, your opening statement.
Thank you, John Lanier, and I know you're enjoying your retirement. And thanks to the Chamber for the opportunity to speak at this forum. Yes, I'm running for another term on City Council to continue the work the council has committed to over the past few years. And I'm real proud of the transformative improvements to the Roosevelt neighborhood. I want to complete our infrastructure strategic plan. I want to continue progress on a Brevard area trail system. I want to design and construct the Acoustic Trail. I want to continue to improve our city parks, our downtown, and other programs we have in progress. As many of you know, I've served on the City Council for a number of years. and I want to use my unique experience to help my hometown Brevard grow and become even a better place to live.
Okay, thank you. Okay, now we're to the question. And we'll go in a random order here, so I will call you in a random order, okay? So the first question, and Mr. Bailey, you will go first. What role should the city of Brevard play in dealing with the affordable workforce housing crisis?
Well, it's obviously a great question, and it's been on everybody's mind and a big topic. The role I see with the city is being able to facilitate incentives for private sector to make it worth an investor's time, but also not just providing somebody to come in and build very high-end houses, because every community, just like us, we have different levels of incomes and homes, from entry-level homes. My daughter, for example, is having a house built through Habitat. She's in her mid-20s, and those are important programs. So I see the city being able to collaborate, or at least my idea would be kind of an entrepreneurial mindset to collaborate with organizations kind of like that. And I had a conversation with a young lady today who's developing another organization that is a nonprofit for those kinds of game plans to team up to develop areas of downtown, but also just making it kind of a teamwork effort between private sector and also the city. For the city to come up with an exact program is not an easy solution, because, for example, a lot of people can buy a property and then turn it into an Airbnb and make sometimes 3 or 4 times the revenue per month. So that makes a challenge, because property owners sometimes want to have return on their money higher. So coming up with incentives to get more homes built, because as we see, the supply is really low. And when the supply is low, as Aaron was saying last week, that we're losing population because people don't have a place to live.
Okay, thank you. All right, Mr. Morrow, the same question. And if any time, candidates, you need the question repeated, just ask me.
I have a strong interest in local housing politics and have spent considerable time working with others to explore feasible, acceptable, and suitable options. And this is where it gets tricky. It's a very frustrating topic, because the city of Brevard is not in the housing business. That's a county function, but we are in the position to where we can actually help and be at the table and be part of it. But the dollars in there, and that's why I hesitated there under the feasible thing. It's going to be expensive, but so we do need to look for tools, and where there's opportunity and responsibility and jurisdiction sometimes diverge. But there's a link on the Brevard website that talks about the minutes of the last meeting, and you can read that and really see the detail of what the housing situation is today. But it's glad that I'm excited that we're having this conversation. The city's got a committee that's working on the short-term rental issue, but the broader perspective, there are people like, I'll mention Tory Borhog and others, who actually do have a plan and are working and talking with us in planning projects that would meet this.
Thank you. Mr. Baker.
Yeah, thanks. I think the fact that this question was first tells you that it's a big, important topic that we need to discuss. And I won't go into a lot of detail on why it's a problem, but one thing I'll say, and Bill referenced it, was that the census data just came out, and every county that our county touches on all sides, including South Carolina, is gaining population. And the census showed that Transylvania County is losing population. So I think that tells you all you need to know. So let's talk about like potential solutions, what we can do. And Mac, I disagree a little bit. I do think that the city, we're not going to be building the buildings, but I do think it's the city's business to be working on this issue. We've got city-owned land that we could partner with developers on today to work on this issue. City Council waived some utility fees for an affordable housing project just this week, but that program could be codified and made permanent and really given out to developers as an incentive before they even think of a project, so that they know that those fees are not going to be there and that they have a partner in the city that's going to help them. And then we've got to look for outside organizations, places like Dogwood Health Trust that has some money, and they're already working on projects in other counties. I've talked to them just as a citizen, and they say, we need a local partner. And they're looking for the county and the city to reach out to them.
Okay. Thank you. And Mr. Jones.
Thank you. Well, I think the first thing we need to decide on, since we all agree that affordable housing is a task that needs to be addressed, is the larger issue of what we want the city to look like. There are various ways we can approach this. Aaron has mentioned the city-owned lands. Do we want to deploy some of this and this? Do we want to change zoning regulations? Do we want to develop inclusive zoning where a developer can go in and do some luxury buildings after he but some percentage of it needs to be affordable housing? So we sort of need to decide all of that first, and that will require a lot of input from a lot of people, because again, we're here, we're trying to make things better for people who don't have housing, but we are here to serve all of the people. And so we need to be flexible enough so that a developer doesn't feel put upon, or someone who just wants to build a very expensive home, even though what we think we need is affordable housing. And even short-term rentals should have a rule book to go by, when and when not, and how we want to handle that. So first step is planning. There's resources out there. There's ways to do it. The city doesn't have a lot of money, but there are people that do. There are governments and grants, and if we plan this out, we can get it done. Thank you.
I apologize for that. We seem to be having some technical issues here at the at the library. So Mr. Jones, I think we kind of missed your last 2 or 3 sentences, at least from my perspective. If you'd want to go ahead and kind of reiterate what you said at the very end there. You still got to unmute still.
Well, first of all, thank you, because I was feeling self-conscious about being ham-fisted with this thing. So I'm glad other people are having problems too. And I think the last 3 sentences were, we have the resources to do this. Even though the city doesn't have a pile of cash, we have opportunities, we have interested individuals. We just need to plan what we want it to look like, and we will get it done.
Okay.
And this is my view.
Okay, our second question then, and Mr. Morrow, we will go to you first, okay? How do you envision tourism in Transylvania County in 5 years? What actions would the city of Brevard need to take to attain that vision?
Well, hopefully within 5 years, we would receive the wonderful grant that we have proposed to Secretary Buttigieg. We'd get that money and it would come to us in November or be approved. That being said, we would have all of the kind of improvements that the downtown master plan calls for. We would have completion of the Brevard area trails system that would accommodate additional folks. And we would also have the $11 million for the design and construction of the Cooster Trail. People have found Brevard as a destination because they feel it's safer. So we've got a whole new group of families that come that are COVID refugees. And so we have been discovered. Many of them are trying to find a place to move here, live here. I've met several in this campaign that are young people who relocated here for that very reason. So tourism will always be a tourist town, but we want to be a sustainable tourism town. So we want businesses that can thrive, employees that can make a decent living in that field, and young people come here to do that. And we see it, we meet them on the street. In 5 years, we were on the map as the cycling capital of the South. That's National Magazine. We're America's 10 best mountain biking towns in National Magazine, and America's 20 coolest outdoor towns. So we're making it, and we're known. And the TCT is pulling in $200,000 a month.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Bailey, same question.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, so in 5 years, I see hopefully a nice balance between some high-end, high-tech, quality companies coming into Brevard, like we've had a few in the last several years. And that balanced in with more and more tourists finding out about Brevard. Like Max said, it's a destination. The cycling alone is driving people from Florida and all around and all parts of the country to cute small towns like Brevard. And Brevard is a really neat place for a lot of tourism. And I think that speaks volumes because of the amount of short-term rentals we have here with the Airbnbs. We have a higher percentage than the other counties around us, so we can see the drive for tourism. Hopefully, like I said, the trail will be finished. I think we'll see another nice hotel or two in the downtown area, at least maybe one coming along, maybe another good quality restaurant or two to serve the demand of the supply of people coming in. Possibly that whole downtown project, the master plan, I don't know if I see it fully completed within 5 years, because I see it as a long project, but maybe more than halfway along the way in that process, and some of those grants coming in. So I see a lot of that progress and just becoming even nicer than it already is. It's going in the right direction in a lot of ways, I think. So I think I see that balance between getting more quality jobs from companies wanting to be here and also driving in the tourism aspect of it.
Okay. Mr. Jones, your response.
Well, for tourism, and obviously that's a vital part of our economy here, I would like to see the heart of Brevard start to expand. Right now, if you're spending time a day in Brevard, you're really spending most of your time on a couple blocks of Main Street, maybe a slip along Broad Street for a block. But we've got, I think, a lot of development opportunities. And if you're looking for a vision for tourism down 5 years from now, I would say more businesses that are, how would you say, tourist oriented in the heart of Brevard. This would not in any way impact our attempts to increase opportunities for families to stay here, although they benefit from that too. And of course, we'd still want to attract jobs, but in terms of the tourism part, we simply, I think we let that area grow. We encourage it. If we have to do a few incentives to help people out, we do that too. And we'll have more tourists. We'll need more rooms, another hotel perhaps or two, and things will work. And my time's up.
And Mr. Baker.
Yeah, thanks. Well, I've served 6 years on Transylvania County Tourism and definitely was privy to the expansion of tourism that we've all experienced over the last 6 years. And tourism's a critical part of our economy. It's not the only thing. We've got small manufacturing, one of which I'm employed by, Oscar Blues Brewery. But tourism is always going to be an important part of our town. I think the critical word that I would say in 5 years is balance. Can we find a balance with the tourism that we're attracting and some of the negative effects that go along with that? And it's not the tourist's fault, but with tourism comes some negative effects. So one of the things I was most proud of on Transylvania County Tourism is that we started a committee that I'm now the chair of called Transylvania Always, which takes tourism dollars, occupancy tax dollars from visitors, and uses it to support things in our natural places, working on trail projects. But the other impact that tourism has is on housing, and we just talked about that a little bit. But the short-term rental housing or the short-term rental issue is something that I'm very concerned about. In 2016, 4% of our occupancy tax came from short-term rentals. And this year it's 55%. So a lot more money is coming from short-term rentals. And that's having an impact on the housing market for people that live here.
Okay, thank you. All right, I believe we're on to the third question. Mr. Jones, you will go first. Do you think the city of Brevard should take measures to limit short-term rentals? Following up on the last question. If so, what measures should be taken?
Well, I think that is part of the larger question. Short-term rentals do some good for the city, and but in terms of I think the larger question is, how do you want the city to look? And this is part of the affordable housing equation. Now, there's a lot of suggestion that the more short-term, if you convert houses into short-term rentals from other units, you might be losing some housing. But at the end of the day, the short-term rental needs to fit in with the overall affordable housing plan. Now, as appropriate disclosure, I happen to have one short-term rental. So I might be a little biased there, and who knows, maybe I'll have to recuse myself once or twice. But I think handling short-term rentals alone is a pitfall. And I think the reason for that is the only tool that we think the city has right now is a zoning tool. So if you use your zoning tool to handle short-term rentals and then turn around and decide, here's our plan for affordable housing, and you're turning right around and rezoning places for the new plan, well, that just doesn't sound very efficient, does it?
Thank you. Mr. Baker.
Yeah, I believe the city has to address the short-term rental issue. I commend the current city council for starting the task force that they have to address this issue. I hope that they feel like they have a sense of urgency. There are some measures that we have over 1,000 short-term rentals in our county, and that is a county of 34,000 people. That is a lot of houses that are taken off the market. And to go back to those census numbers, I don't think that you can ignore the fact that those homes are now off the market and people aren't living in them. So yes, zoning is the only tool that the state allows the city to use to regulate short-term rentals, and I think we should use it. The county does not have zoning, and they are not going to regulate short-term rentals. So the only place where we can have any impact on this is within the city limits. And the other thing about zoning is that it's grandfathered in. So the folks that own short-term rentals currently, if we make a change, this would not change the fact that they could still operate those short-term rentals within the city, but it would affect future transactions and slow down the growth of these within the city limits, and try to hold on to some of those homes for people that actually live here, people that can vote in our elections. People that are tuning into this right now are people that live here and are engaged, and we need those people in our community.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Bailey.
Yes, thank you. I'm generally not in favor of government control over people's private property. And the reason these short-term rentals are having an impact is because people are able to sometimes generate 2, 3, 4, 5 times more revenue per month, and it's hard for them to walk away from that sometimes. But I do see the serious need to address it to some degree in terms of collaborating with developers and giving incentives to somehow, some way for more houses to be built, for people to be property owners. The long-term rental market is, as we see, the supply is so low because people can make more money doing short-term rentals. And a lot of times the short-term rental customer, that tourist, they are in and out anywhere from a few days to maybe a week or so. And a lot of the homeowners have sometimes a lot less issues per se. So it's not an easy solution, but so in general, I would not be in favor of the city coming up with some kind of restrictive idea, but I would be in favor of listening to any creative ideas that would make sense to balance out between people being able to become property owners, people coming into the town that need to rent for 6 months or a year or longer that are going to be long-term renters.
Okay. And Mr. Morrow. You're muted, Mr. Morrow.
Thank you. And I'm optimistic that the task force that Aaron mentioned is going to do great things. It's going to offer some options for the planning board to consider, and then city council. But I want to, while we're talking about it, there will be a housing workshop. Actually, look for that the council will host in October. So we're not waiting around. We're going to deal with it. We had 80 pages in our packet this Monday, and so it's a hot topic, we all know. But listening, when we want to talk about short-term rentals real quick, you've got to think about distinguishing between whole house short-term rentals and homestays, where the operator actually lives there and rents either a portion of his house or has some control over it. So when you think about control, perhaps you can regulate which district might have which. So you might allow homestays, for example, in the general residential zone, which would have really no impact on the character. So there's some ideas floating around out there being talked about. The elephant in the room, though, if the city goes that way, is who pays. Because the enforcement administration is very expensive. And what do you do if you catch somebody not doing what they're supposed to do? So it's a sticky wicket. Mac McKellar gave us his review. He says you obviously cannot do any moratorium, but you could actually have an additional tax if you could convince the legislature to approve it. And so,
Right. Okay. All right, the fourth question. And Mr. Baker, you will be first with this one. We are stronger as a community when all voices are heard and respected. What would you do to champion a diverse and inclusive environment to equitably serve all citizens of Brevard?
Well, this is near to my campaign because one of the platforms that I'm running on is responsive government. And I think one of the things I talk about a lot is that, in a place where we can't go through the grocery store without bumping into 15 people we know, and our trip takes 10 times longer than we want it to, we really need a small town city government that's effective and communicates with its citizens, all of its citizens. And so one of the things, and I think Dede Perkins on the mayor side has also talked about this, but I believe the city really needs a public information officer, and that's a fancy term, but really it's somebody on city staff whose whole job it is to communicate with the citizens. Right now, we've got city council people on Facebook on We Are Brevard trying to get the word out about meetings and things going on, and that's okay, but they're elected officials, and I really feel like we should have somebody on city staff that's doing that job. The other thing is equity and making sure we're meeting the needs of all of our neighborhoods. I think having meetings on the Tuesday at 10 a.m. Is pretty tough for working people. I think we need to make sure our meetings are at times when everybody can attend them. And also meeting in different places. I'm looking forward to the Mary C. Jenkins Center being completed at long last, and maybe we can have city council and other committee meetings in that building and move them to other places around the city.
Okay, thank you. All right, Mr. Bailey.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I like the idea of having meetings in a variety of places. That connection, it's part of our humanity, our DNA of wanting to feel connected and pulling in for communities all around, all parts of this community, different parts of Brevard and the county, and making all of us feel connected. It is true. We go into the grocery store or wherever, and we run into a lot of people we know. And I think reaching out to leaders of the community, pastors, business owners, and facilitating and those kinds of connections and incentivizing to work together. The Mary C. Jenkins Community Center is a great place to not only start, but to just build on and look at areas of the town that are not as developed and look at where we can maybe bring that up to speed to where we create that balance and it doesn't look like one part of town is being favored over another part. So that's kind of my view of it. Thank you.
Mr. Jones.
Thank you. Well, I think that's really a tough one, and I don't have a glib answer for it. And I respect the answers of the other candidates. But when I think about inclusivity in Brevard, I kind of think about people with issues that haven't even been discussed today. So people who are from here, who live in a house that came from their family and whatnot, they don't necessarily want a lot. they want potholes filled, and they want their, they want their taxes to be restrained and things like that. And those people, I don't think are going to benefit from, the news, the newspaper reporting on it, or a communications officer or stuff like that. That having been said, I haven't given you a good idea for how we reach those people, but I think we need to be aware that when we talk about inclusivity, it's a lot of people. If we see them at the supermarket, we know them. If we don't see them at the supermarket, where are they? So I think that's what we need to look at.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Morrow.
Thank you. There's a couple of things that are going on that well, first of all, communication really takes two people. You've got to have an interest, and you got to have a forum where you can either go find the information and follow up with a discussion. Unfortunately, the social media platform is not the place, because most of the facts are discretionary, and people they get a one-sided pitch or something. And so I don't think that's the effective medium. And I'm not a fan of hiring a small town can't afford to have a PR person. My gosh, we got 7,000 people, but we were doing some things. Mark Burroughs' Empathy Project, for example, was a wonderful program that let us stop and think about other people. The Blue Zone and the Pisgah Health Foundation are creating programs that are all generated around inclusivity and healthy living and learning who your neighbor is. Even in discussions of the Custa Trail, we received 34 recommendations for that trail. All of the minority churches, for example, and they all talked about how it could help bring us all together in one place. So yes, there's a lot of good things going on. Can we do a better job? Absolutely. Can we spruce up our website? Absolutely. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Our next question, and Mr. Bailey, we are back to you again. So you'll respond first. What can be done to enhance pedestrian and bicycle traffic and safety within the city of Brevard?
Oh, that's a great question. Thank you. One of the things that gets brought up is the sidewalks being updated, which would take quite an infrastructure program to widen those. That's one idea. I've thought for years possibly having more of lanes for road biking, because this is a biking mecca between road biking and mountain biking. And you hear some stories of people that ride bikes regularly, how they will sometimes, just by the sheer process of statistics, that they're going to get sometimes run off the road. There's accidents that can potentially happen anywhere. So possibly finding grants, resources somewhere to develop more bike paths, more potential bike trails along the city that go from the city out to the county, and then updating some of the sidewalks for wider walking. Those are some of the immediate things I think about, and that would have an impact for year-round residents as well as tourists. Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Jones.
Well, I remember talking to a friend who'd had a bicycle accident, and he started his sentence off with, "The first time I got hit by a car." And I said, "Let's please stop." So obviously there's a need for bicycle safety. Now downtown, the new traffic patterns and stuff, I think, answer that. New bike paths will make the world a larger place for bicyclists. Although I will alert you to the fact that I've threatened to get a bicycle, and that then everyone would be unsafe. However, so we have improvements under the way. Next thing would be certainly more sidewalks. If we need to widen or straighten streets, maybe we should look at that. And once again, I'm sounding like the pothole candidate, but if you're riding your bicycle in a street, it's not a safe experience. For a car, it's just annoying, but for a bicyclist, it could be worse. There you have that.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Morrow.
You know, I have a little bit advantage that I'm chair of the Parks, Recreation and Trails Committee in the city. And so I'm privy to all the things we're working on. But let me just explain. Alta is probably one of the best planning groups in the country. They spent 3 years hired by the North Carolina DOT 3 years, a few years ago, looking at East Atto Trail. But they're under contract. Currently, we've had 2 meetings to look at all of our pedestrian pathways, look at walkability, bikeability, look and identify opportunities to connect, corresponding safety and issues, whether it's access. We're challenged with how we get back and forth across US 64. We know that we want to get people out and enjoy the outdoors. So we're developing corridors and understanding of connections and priorities. So all of that's ongoing. It'll be disclosed to the public pretty soon. You'll get to see there'll be 2 public hearings. It's an opportunity to express that. When the new highway work gets underway in 2024, 64, the new Smart Street, for example, there's a lot of safety improvements to that and connectivity, and bike amenities. We get the raise grant. We'll even have a tunnel under 64 on one of those. So, but we're very conscious of the demand.
Okay, thank you. All right, and Mr. Baker.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, one of the most simple things that we could do is complete the multi-use path that the city has had a plan for almost 20 years. It's amazing to sit and watch my son play soccer over at the county fields over there and just see how many people utilize that trail every single day. And where we've built it, people use it. And so extra miles are only going to be used more. And how amazing would it be to connect our schools so that our kids can safely ride? My son Henry is pretty proficient on a bike, but him getting from my house over by the Tannery Skate Park to Brevard Elementary School, there's not a chance I would let him do that. On a bike path, I definitely would consider that. So that's a top priority for me, finishing that bike path. And then the downtown master plan has some really great plans in it. Very simple bike lanes on Jordan Road or Jordan Street and Morgan Street, going in either direction. And you move some parking spaces around, you paint a green stripe on one side of the road, and that becomes the bike thoroughfare from one side of downtown to the other. That's a very inexpensive thing we can do that symbolically says, we care about bike safety and pedestrian safety. And it's part of our downtown. So I would love to see that implemented very quickly.
Thank you. Right. This next question is going to be the last question, and we will go through all 4 candidates, and then you will be allowed after that to give your closing statements. Okay. So this question will go to Mr. Morrow first. In the last few years, the city of Brevard has initiated some projects outside the downtown area. Are there other growth and development opportunities within city limits, but outside the downtown area you envision?
Well, the most exciting one is right across from Kier Manufacturing and the new pharmaceutical labs. Raybo has got a $15 million project going on. Are you talking about city projects though, John? Or are you talking about private outside the downtown?
I think what we're talking about is things like the Mary C. Jenkins Center, the Railroad Depot, things that are not technically right in downtown.
In fact, probably most of them are. And when you look at what was just completed during COVID, the Railroad Depot, the Railroad Avenue Park, in the Brevard Skate Park, the Brevard Dog Park, the first phases, 2 phases of the Silverstein Memorial Playground. So there's all of those projects are outside the downtown. The only project downtown actually is the Clemson project underway. So I think we can be real proud of what we're doing.
Okay. Mr. Jones?
Well, I think Mac just did a pretty good job of itemizing some of the events that are happening outside downtown. And of course, let's not forget all the trails and bicycle path building. Some of those touch downtown, but they're elsewhere too. A lot of what is enabling this is there appears to be a lot of grant money coming around, and the city has done a good job of raising its hand at a time when other municipalities had not. And I think we've gotten more than our fair share for these projects. But that grant money is not going to be around all that long. When we come out of the COVID tunnel, suddenly the federal and state governments will be being a little more conservative with their money. So I think while we have it, what we need to do is concentrate on finishing the projects that are up and running. Half of Mary C. Jenkins project is not a functioning Mary C. Jenkins facility. So I think what we really need to do is concentrate on what is happening now and finish up a lot of that, so that we don't, when the music stops, we don't have a lot of half-finished projects. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Baker.
Yeah, I mean, I'll jump right from where Kevin ended and talk about half-finished projects, and I consider the multi-use path on that list. The plans have it going all the way to the high school and connecting up with the existing Gallimore extension, which again is separate from any other parts of the path, but gets used by so many people daily. So, you know, in terms of developing some things outside of downtown, I think the multi-use path becomes that once we get through downtown and on into the high school. I agree that the Silverstein Playground is in the Rosenwald community. We've got to finish the other 2 phases of that project. And then I think we really need to look at what the county has going on at the former airport property and see if there are ways we can partner with them. That's going to be it's a huge piece of land. A ton of it is in floodplain. But in terms of river frontage, the French Broad River is an amazing amenity in our community that I really feel like is underappreciated. And completing a major river park there would be a great amenity for both the county and the city. And I think that's an opportunity where we could really work with the county to bring something that we could all enjoy.
Thank you. And Mr. Bailey.
Yes, thank you. And outside of what the guys already mentioned, which are great areas of serious issue concerns to get finished, those all make a lot of good sense. But one of the biggest areas, the piece of land is here at the Acosta land, that it's not an easy solution, but it's a lot of land. It's still in Brevard as far as I know. I know it's obviously not near downtown, but it's only a couple miles away. It's a massive piece of land, but I know there's a lot of issues with kind of this ongoing cleanup between the water and the things underground, but just a huge potential for a lot of things that could go in there. And so that's one of the main areas that I see. I like the idea of the bike paths. I've thought of that for years. You know, my kids are grown now, and I actually have 4 grandkids, 4 granddaughters, and they're real little right now, and only 2 live here at the moment. So thinking about things that benefit young families, small kids, these bike paths for safety and functionality and connectivity, all gets back to some of those earlier questions. And all of that, to me, makes a lot of good sense, and how the city can work together to facilitate those kinds of inner workings. But that Acoustic land is just a big piece that I think we all see at some point. Some developer is going to come along with some kind of reasonable strategy to put that to make it make sense with all the challenges that it goes along with it.
Okay. All right. So that concludes the questioning portion of the forum for the city council candidates. All right, we will now go to the closing statements. And each one of you will have 1.5 minutes to make your closing statement. And Mr. Jones, we will start with you.
Thank you. Well, everything we talked about was important. One thing I wish we had talked about, though, was the retention of our families and stopping the flow of people leaving town to take jobs. Some interesting things have been happening economically lately. We live in a state where our official minimum wage is $7.25, but the legislature has, before both houses, some bills that would, by 2023, make the state minimum wage $15. And I think that's a good thing. The city currently pays, I believe, no less than $15 an hour to its employees. And newsflash here, the ABC board met today, and they have approved raises up to $15 for each employee. But we were also concerned with compression of wages. So as you raise up minimum wage, it's getting close to other things. And as I was driving today, I went into one of the local gas stations and saw that they were offering $16 an hour to work at a gas station. Plus, if you'd work in the summer, they were willing to pay an extra $100. And I see stop time here, but that's what we're fighting. And so we need to work on that too.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Morrow.
Well, thank you again for the chamber and this opportunity tonight. And I want to reiterate my reasons for running. And I did have a longer list. And I want to go back and just say those projects that are, in addition to that, were mentioned, but big projects, for example, and environment, the Gallimore Road sewer basin improvements, the Kings Creek water line improvements, the Burrow Mountain finished water tank replacements, the Cathy's Creek intake study, are all projects that are there. And I hope I've earned your trust as I ask for your vote and continue to support in this campaign. And because I do want to continue to work on building a better Brevard and complete these projects. I do agree that the $1 million that we're spending this year was a wonderful gift from the American Rescue Fund. We're not going to get that many years, and we've been moving very judiciously to grow our pathways of what we can afford. So thank you very much. I'm running up for another term to continue my commitment to improving Brevard. It's a place to call home. It's my hometown, and I want to be a part of the good things that are happening. Thank you.
Mr. Bailey. You're still muted.
Sorry, thank you, Mr. Lanier, and thank you everybody with the chamber and the library for hosting this. You know, Brevard is a great place to live, and I chose to move here from Florida, and everybody thinks Florida's great. Florida's nice, but it gets hot and it only has maybe 1.5, maybe 2 seasons. We have 4 beautiful seasons. So being here in Brevard, I love it here, raised my family here, and I want to see it continue to grow in the right direction. You know, some of the things, my focus for the campaign would be, you know, working with the with the city council on strategies for attracting companies that can generate higher paying jobs. You know, Kevin talked about a lot of focus on minimum wage. I'd love to see where people are making 2 and 3 times that because of their skill and knowledge of the demand of these jobs that are out there for high quality companies that are coming in. Making wise decisions with taxpayer dollars is another part of the my platform. Seeing reasonable growth strategies for this town, and balancing out the things for tourism and also people that live here year round. Thank you again for allowing me to be here tonight.
And Mr. Baker.
Well, I want to thank the other candidates for being here, and thank the Chamber of Commerce and you, John, for presenting this forum and doing so in a safe way, even though it probably means some more headaches for you guys. Brevard is a really special place, and I really think the city government should reflect and support just how special this place is. We face some new challenges, and we've talked a lot about them tonight: housing, aging, and unfinished infrastructure. And we need an effective small town city government that responds and communicates with its citizens. I want to talk just a second about nonpartisanship here at the end. I'm actually a registered unaffiliated, and I'm running because I care about local issues and solving them. These are luckily nonpartisan races, meaning that there won't be a D or an R or a U next to our names on the ballot. And I'm really glad that there won't be. We need local solutions to local problems. We need the best people for the job, and we need to do it together, not separately. National politics has nothing to do with this race. And I hope the voters will vote for the right people based on our platforms and our capabilities. You can find out more about my campaign at bakerforbrevard.com. I'm on Instagram and Facebook, and please get in touch. Thank you.
All right. I'd like to thank all 4 of you for your participation, and for everyone who has been listening. I know we had a few technical difficulties, so I appreciate you sticking with us through those things, and wish all 4 of you the best of luck come November. We will probably take a 3 to 5 minute quick break here so we can make the transition from our city council members to our mayor candidates, and then we'll be back shortly. Thank you.
Thanks, folks. We appreciate y'all joining us. We'll be back in a few. Are you muted, John? Yeah. I can't mute him on that. We them? Yeah. No, we'll do that. Okay. Just so you know what, I am being very gracious. There were 2 people I muted right as they stopped, and then there was one who All right. Hey, folks, thanks for joining us. Sorry, I'm going to hop on John's. Okay. Hey, folks. I think are through all of our glitches. Everything worked fine. We had a combination of one of our 4 computers we're using went haywire, and then the Wi-Fi at the library went down, but I think we're pretty well smoothed out. Here in just a minute, we will get things back going. Any quick last questions by any of the candidates? Okay. Former board chair of mine used to say silence is acceptance, so I will consider it as such.
Okay, thank you. Can all the candidates hear me? Yes, okay. All right, before we get on to the Brevard mayor's race, I'd like to note the candidates for Rosman Town of Alderman. Those candidates are Jared M. Crow, Missy Smith Hendricks, Troy Morgan, Eric Berlin Owen, and Deidre Shelton. The chamber did receive one biography from one of the candidates. Candidate Troy Morgan graduated from Rosman High School and currently works for Transylvania County Solid Waste. He is married to Georgia, and they have 3 children, Shannon, Jessica, and Eric. I will briefly, again, go through the rules for candidates for mayor. And then we'll go from there. Again, I will read each candidate's biography. Each candidate will then be asked to provide a 1-minute opening statement about who they are and why they are running. I will then ask the pre-selected questions that were compiled by the Chamber's Governmental Affairs Committee with my participation as moderator. And then a maximum of 1.5 minutes will be designated for each response to questions asked. The chamber staff will hold up a yellow card to indicate 15 seconds of time remaining and a red card to signal time is up. So please, when you just see that red card, try to end your sentence. Okay. I will ask a different candidate to respond first with each question. Each candidate will have an opportunity to respond. The order of candidates was created randomly prior to the event. And then after all the questions are answered, we will give each candidate 1.5 minutes to summarize their platforms. Please indicate that you can see the time card being shown now, just a second, by raising your hand. Okay, we're all good. All right, thank you very much. Okay. If you don't understand, if you understand all the rules, then we will get started. All right. Our first candidate, and I do not see him on the screen, is Mr. Chuck Chapman. Candidate Chuck Chapman graduated from high school in Jackson, Mississippi, and studied sociology and economics before graduating from UCLA. Mr. Chapman moved to Brevard area in 2001 and is currently employed at the George Street Cafe. He helped build the Haven and the Family Place and also volunteers at the Bread of Life Soup Kitchen. He assisted the United Way and created the first public transportation for downtown Brevard using a Bread of Life van and is part of a group that helps young people obtain safe and affordable vehicles. Candidate Chapman sends his regrets that he was unable to participate in tonight's forum due to some other responsibilities. Maureen Kopeloff. Candidate Maureen Kopeloff graduated from Granby High School in Granby, Connecticut, and attended the University of South Carolina with postgraduate work at Auburn University. She served in the Navy for 30 years, where her leadership was recognized with the Defense Superior Service Medal, 3 Legion of Merit medals, 4 Meritorious Service medals, and 5 Navy Commendation medals. In addition to her military career, Ms. Kopeloff has served numerous community organizations in various capacities, including the Land of Sky Regional Council, the Regional Transportation Advisory Committee, the Blue Zone Steering Committee, the Brevard Parks and Trails Committee, the American Legion, Rise and Shine, Free Reign, as a community healthcare liaison, and much more. She also currently serves on the Brevard City Council. Maureen is a recipient of SCORE's Extra Mile Award for being a guiding light in the community. She is married to Sylvan Kopeloff. The next candidate is Danny Hein. Candidate Danny Hein graduated from Brevard High School and received a degree in biology from the Citadel before earning a Master of Business Administration from the University of South Carolina. He also served as an Army officer with 12 years on active duty. He currently works as the Administrative Director of Orthopedics and Sports Medicine for Pardee UNC Healthcare. In addition, he is a Transylvania County appointed member on the Mountain Area Workforce Development Board, a board member of Vision Transylvania and the Blue Ridge Literacy Council, and is in his 4th year of service with the Transylvania County Parks and Recreation Commission. He is also a radio broadcaster for the Brevard Blue Devil High School football team and a former PA announcer for 4 years. Our final candidate is Dede Perkins. Candidate Dede Perkins graduated from Burns High School, then received a degree in Business Communications and Marketing from UNC Chapel Hill. She is the owner of Dede Bullwinkle's Outdoors and Rocky's Grill and Soda Shop, and has served on the Brevard Downtown Master Plan Committee for 27 years. She has also served as a board member for Heart of Brevard, the Brevard Transylvania Chamber of Commerce, and on the Transylvania County Tourism Board, where she is the current Marketing Committee and Destination Infrastructure Chair. She was a founding board member of the Transylvania Economic Alliance and served on the Brevard City Council for 8 years. Ms. Perkins has received the Business Person of the Year Award, the Business of the Year Award, and the NC Main Street Champion Award. Dede is married to Jimmy Perkins, and they have 2 children, Adam and Allie. Okay, it's now time for the candidates to give their opening statements. You each have 1 minute, and we will start with Ms. Kopeloff.
Thank you. Good evening. Thank you for inviting me to speak. Serving our community, it's just 3 words, but those are the most important words to consider when thinking about the job of mayor. Those 3 words have been the focus of everything I've done as a community volunteer, elected official, and as your neighbor. I'm running for mayor to be your advocate. Stand up, lead, represent, and fight for the needs of our community. It's what I do best. 3 other words: honor, courage, and commitment. These are the core values of the United States Navy. Every member from junior enlisted to 4-star admiral is expected to live by these words. They are central to my life. As mayor, I will serve our community and do it with honor, courage, and commitment.
Thank you. Mr. Hein?
Thank you to the chamber and to the other candidates. This is indeed an honor to even be part of the discussion about the future of the town that we all love. And the reason I'm running for mayor is really, I'm a resident here. And this is my hometown and where I grew up. And the issues that we're facing now at this particular time in our evolution, we're at a crossroads. We've talked about topics like housing, healthcare, prioritizing spending your tax dollars. And all of these things are relevant and important, and how we engage in solving these problems is paramount. It's going to take a strong leader to help navigate the future of the town that we all love. I love telling the story of Brevard. It's inspirational to me, and I want to make sure that you as a resident have a story to tell to those that you know and love, that you can smile and laugh about, and that you can continue to be a part of this town and thrive here. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Perkins. You're still muted.
I'm having technical difficulties too. So thank you, the Chamber, for hosting the forum tonight. And I would like to tell you why I'm running for mayor. And I want Brevard to be a place where families, workers, and retirees can afford to buy a home and can be a part of a thriving community. Since I retired from Brevard City Council, a housing crisis has emerged. Short-term rentals have exploded across the area, unchecked by city leaders. Working people cannot afford to live here anymore. Promises have been broken. Construction of the city's multi-use path has been stagnant for 10 years, and it was the #1 priority. While special interest projects have taken priority over those. As your mayor, I will use my experience to ensure Brevard's future includes healthy, diverse economy. I will work to preserve our unique character, vibrancy, and natural resources that make Brevard a desirable place to live. I'll champion healthy, walkable, and connected communities. I will commit to transparency and honesty. I believe we're stronger together, and
Okay, now we're into the question portion of the forum. And the first question will go to Mr. Hein. And if any of you need the questions repeated at any point in time, just let me know. Okay, so the first question. As the mayor and head of city government, how would you approach collaboration with the county, regional, and state level, particularly with regard to other elected officials and governing bodies?
Well, that's a great question. I think that's one of the primary roles of the mayor, is to create those connections and to be the facilitator and the person that can leverage the pieces that will bring benefit to the residents. And so, what that requires is an open dialogue. I think there's tremendous opportunity with the county because we have limited resources, both as a city with a $35 million budget and a county. So there's a lot of things that we can do and a lot of projects that we're working on that have overlap. And I think if we were to connect and really leverage the opportunities across both entities, we could get a lot of these things that we're talking about done. So that's a primary role of mayor. I love communicating, I love learning, and I love connecting the dots across all the resources that we can bring to bear for the benefit of our residents.
Thank you. Ms. Perkins? You're still muted.
Thank you, John. Appreciate that. I think building relationships is one of the most important jobs for the mayor. And city and county governments touch every person in North Carolina. When local elected officials work together, the community benefits. As mayor, I will meet with county commissioner chair to exchange ideas, look for solutions and commonalities as we move our community forward. When I was on city council, I met with Commissioner Mike Hawkins at least once a month. And currently I talk with David Geis about community issues all the time. I've invited Larry Chapman to breakfast because I believe all politics is local. There is no room for partisan politics and partisanship at the local level. Our issues are everybody's issues. The best ways to find solutions is when we talk to each other. As mayor, I will host quarterly meetings with elected officials in our county. I will build relationships, foster dialogue so that we become allies for progress. In addition to that, we've got to build relationships with other mayors and other communities around us. I've already began reaching out to them. And we also need to make sure that we are in Raleigh on a regular basis so that we can communicate what the needs are in our mountain community with the people who represent us there for change. Thank you.
Ms. Kopeloff.
Thank you. Building relationships and representing our city is one of the key roles of mayor, and that's one of my primary objectives. We've got to do it locally, and we've got to do it regionally, and we've got to do it statewide, really, to be effective. I think we've got so many common interests, with the county, that we have to sit down, we have to identify those common interests, and we have to listen to one another. Listening, meeting, and getting together with the good of our citizens as the primary goal, because that's what we both want, what the county and the city wants. So I think we have to find those common interests. We have normal meetings scheduled, but we need more of them. I also think it's really important that we talk with other mayors in the region. I'm already doing that in my healthcare liaison role, where I meet with other mayors that have small regional hospitals that are experiencing problems like we are. I also already meet at a regional level with Land of Sky, with other council members and mayors to discuss what's happening, sharing interests and lessons learned with COVID, for example. But we also need to be working at the state level, making sure that we are representing and advocating for our city, because as mayor, that advocating role is one of the key jobs. And we need to do that by working with our state legislators and making sure that our needs are represented well in Raleigh, that we collaborate with the county on that effort going forward. Thank you.
Okay. The second question, and Ms. Perkins, you will be first. We are stronger as a community when all voices are heard and respected. What would you do to champion a diverse and inclusive environment to equitably serve all citizens of Brevard?
Thank you, John. I believe that inclusion starts with engagement, and it also involves communication. Communication has been a big part of my platform. And I think that the city could benefit by having a part-time public relations officer, and that person's responsibility would be to use social media to plan to make sure that people in all of our communities know what's going on. Currently, people have to be friends with a city council member to know what's happening with city news, or follow whatever's going on We Are Brevard. I think ways to do more inclusion. We hear often that Rosenwald feels that they are isolated and left out, and I think that is true. We have to make sure we are inviting those people to the table, and that we are going to their communities and hearing what their needs are and addressing that. There are great ways to do that. Our festivals and events, right now we tend to play bluegrass music and have square dances, and that's fine, but we need to also reach out culturally to what would appeal to those people over in the Rosenwald community. We can also tell their history and tell their story. And that opens up doors and offers dialogue and inclusion, and makes people want to come to the table together. We can do that by telling their history at Clemson Park, by putting panels up with
Okay, Ms. Kopeloff, same question.
This has been one of my goals since I got elected to City Council 4 years ago. And what we need to do is we need to continue what we've already started to build. Inclusion and comes with trust, and trust has to be earned. And I think the city has already made some great progress in this. We've been investing in different areas of town, the new Mary C. Jenkins Center, the new Rosenwald playground. We need to continue with these. We need to make sure that we are focusing on all of our residents. We need that investment in other parts of town, just like the railroad depot. Again, building up that section of town. We need to work with some of the nonprofits that we have, like Project Empathy. We need more community events. These spaces that we are building aren't just public amenities. They are places that can build community. When you get to know one another, when you meet one another, when you communicate with one another, that's how you build inclusion and respect and trust. One good example is our basketball court. Well, that is a wonderful area that now is being used. We had a basketball game where probably 150 people from the community just came out to enjoy themselves. We need to have more events like this, and we need to be open and listen so that we understand the history that has gone on, that we respect that history, and that we work together in really building that inclusive team. Thank you.
Mr. Hein?
John, would you mind repeating that question?
Sure. Let's see. We are stronger as a community when all voices are heard and respected. What would you do to champion a diverse and inclusive environment to equitably serve all citizens of Brevard?
Thank you. I think that's intrinsically baked into the job description of mayor. And I say that because really the mayor is the person who is the public relations officer, who is the communicator, who is the listener, who is the engager, and who is present in all of these communities to hear the stories, because there are stories to be heard. And it's the intake of all of that information and the ability to translate that and understand it and work with the city council to make sure that all of these communities, their ideas, their thoughts, their concerns are heard. So I think that is one of the more exciting things about being mayor, is getting to talk to people, getting to learn about your neighbors, the other folks in the community who inspire you, the stories that you hear. I heard one today in a coffee shop that was absolutely amazing about a citizen who is really taking the lead and doing some things relative to housing. So it's being present, it's engaging, it's listening, not only to hear, but to understand. And I think as mayor, that's one of the primary roles, is to be able to do that. You got to get out there, you got to roll up your sleeves and do the hard work of hearing and listening.
Thank you. Right. The third question, Ms. Kopeloff, you will be the first one to answer it. The chamber continues to hear from its members that finding employees right now is the most challenging it has ever been. What can the city of Brevard do to address the issue of the workforce shortage, both short-term and long-term?
Thank you. Well, the main problem that we have to address, and that's the housing crisis. You can't have workforce if you don't have workforce housing. I am contacted constantly by people who have been offered jobs here, and yet they can't accept the jobs and come because they cannot find a place to live. So this is the issue that we have got to tackle, because it affects our families, but it also impacts our businesses and has a large economic impact. We need to start looking at both short-term and long-term solutions to the housing. We need to deal with that short-term rental issue that has been growing. We now have 400 houses in our town that are short-term rentals that actually could be for long-term families, a workforce. We need to start using the tools that we have as a municipality to encourage developers to build more housing. But we also need to use tools that we have to encourage people that have housing right now to not turn it into short-term rentals. Some of this really is a public relations aspect where we need to have people understand the impact of to our community and to our businesses when there is no place for our workforce to live. We also need to deal with the childcare issue, which impacts our workforce. That's another really big one. We need to make sure that we are lobbying the state to increase childcare subsidies, because we don't have enough and it's not affordable. Thank you.
Mr. Hein?
Well, we've all been through, one heck of a last year and a half, almost 2 years of COVID and the implications of that on small businesses and businesses across the spectrum. And that has changed a lot of paradigms that small businesses and others are dealing with. And so I think it's really going to take a collective effort of us engaging with business leaders, of which there are many in this town, to look at creative ways to incentivize workers to come back. A lot of these places, or most places, are short-staffed. And this problem doesn't seem to be resolving on its own. So it's going to take a collaborative, imaginative process to do that. And I believe by engaging community leaders and business owners, we can come up with some great ideas. Housing is certainly one of the big obstacles. I agree completely. And maybe we'll talk about that more later on, more specifically. But it's cobbling together all the components that we can bring to the table to try to incentivize workers to come back. You know, wages, there's upward pressure on wages, but we still have shortages. And it's certainly a paradigm that we're all struggling with. And it's going to take a collective effort on this one. This is no easy undertaking by any means.
Ms. Perkins.
Thank you. And John, repeat the question one more time, please.
Sure. The chamber continues to hear from its members that finding employees right now is the most challenging it has ever been. What can the city of Brevard do to address the workforce shortage, both short-term and long-term?
Yes, and thank you. You know, I live in this world every day. I talking to other businesses downtown. The short term, the workforce problem is very real and it's very difficult. We run ads and have nobody apply for them. So and what I hear from everyone is they can't find a place to live. That tends to be the first thing we hear. We've hired people who then turned a job down because there was nowhere for them to live when they got here. So I applaud the city for the housing task force. That's a good start, but they need to understand the urgency to fix it. I think that one of the things to talk about is when I was on city council, there were 4 affordable and workforce developments that were built during that time, and not one has been built in the last 10 years. And we need to look at those and encourage that and encourage people to build more to build more affordable houses, both for rentals as well as ownership. There are lots of ways the city can identify land to build on, create incentives for infrastructures, find partners and funding, and invite the county to the table. This is a huge element, not just for the city, but for the county. We have to build that relationship. By working together, we can come up with some solutions over the years that it's gonna take to solve it. We also need to work with the Economic Development Board. And I also think the city could bring together businesses and business leaders, create a consortium where we talk.
Okay. All right. This next question, I'm actually going to combine 2 of them, and because workforce housing seems to be a huge issue. And so the question originally was, what role should the city of Brevard play in dealing with the affordable workforce housing crisis? But also we need to talk, and some of you already mentioned this before, about if there are any measures that the city should take to limit short-term rentals. Okay, so Mr. Hein, you would be the first one to respond to that question.
Thank you. The anatomy of the problem is this: in terms of housing, Brevard has the highest percentage of short-term rentals at 4.9% of the surrounding 5 counties. The average daily rate for those is $289 a night, and they're occupied 85% of the time. That's about $90,000 worth of revenue that goes to these property owners. However, we cannot regulate or restrict our way out of this thing. The key to the problem, I believe, is in increasing the supply of housing that's available. And in order to do that, there's basically 3 prongs. The first is reviewing our Unified Development Ordinance to look for opportunities where higher densities of housing is possible in areas where that makes sense while maintaining the integrity of our neighborhoods. It's aligning the incentives that we have between private enterprise, not-for-profit, and other local entities, looking for grant funding, local government incentives, mixing workforce housing, affordable housing, and even market rate housing together. And lastly, it's engaging. This is not just a city problem. This is a city and a county problem. About 400 of those 962 short-term rental units are in the city of Brevard. The balance are in the county. We need to engage both entities to solve this, to really make a dent in the problem.
Thank you. Ms. Perkins?
So the meteoric rise of short-term rentals is detrimental to our community, and it is affecting housing, neighborhoods, and our economy. And the big one there is to think about its effect on our economy. Again, you all have talked about the huge number. There's 400 short-term rentals in the city and 1,000 in the county. That number has doubled since the pandemic. It impacts housing inventories, and it drives up real estate prices, and it drives out workers. It changes the fabric of our neighborhoods when you don't know who the people are that live next door to you or who are staying next door. So ways that we can do this, zoning is our best tool. And we need to look at overlay districts. Ways that we can do it is you allow short-term rentals just in the downtown districts. And in addition to that, you can limit the number of days that people can have short-term rentals, and don't allow them in certain areas and in certain neighborhoods. I also think that accessory housing units need to be looked at, because if people are able to have a garage apartment or an auxiliary, build a small home where they can still be able to afford their house and still have a way to help pay for it, is another solution that other communities have found. Also, I think that we have to go to Raleigh. We have to lobby our General Assembly to give back authority to our local municipalities, so that they untie our hands and let us find the way.
Ms. Kopeloff?
Basically, the city needs to take a leadership role with the housing crisis. That's the role we need to play. We need to be the facilitator. We need to be the collaborator. We need to be the innovator. We need to be the instigator of solutions. We're already starting to do that. We just created a task force that's looking at housing. We have one that's specifically looking at short-term rentals that I co-chair. Because short-term rentals, we really need to look at what the impact is, the negative and the positive impacts of them, because there are both. As Mr. Hein mentioned, this is a way that a lot of our residents do make additional money. I know, one of my neighbors really relied on a short-term rental to help her survive during COVID when she couldn't work. So we need to make sure when we do move forward that we don't have unintended consequences of actions that we take. So we need to understand the impact of what we do, and we need to clearly define the different types of short-term rentals. I want to look at those outside investors that are coming in, buying up housing, and are not part of our community. Because to me, the big problem with short-term rentals is it does undermine the fabric of our neighborhoods, and it does change the nature of our town. So we need to deal with that, but we also need to use all the tools in our toolbox, our regulatory tools, our zoning tools, our incentives, the city-owned land, and we need to do it in a collaborative regional method to deal with the overall housing problem. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, the next question, Ms. Perkins, you will be first. How do you envision tourism in Transylvania County in 5 years? What actions would the city of Brevard need to take to attain that vision?
So I serve on the local tourism board and chair both the marketing committee as well as the destination infrastructure committee. And in 5 years, I see tourism still being very, very vibrant, but I also see the balance between not just using our occupancy tax dollars to bring people to our community, but also using that for sustainable tourism and to make sure that we're using those dollars for the impacts that tourists bring here. I see us in 5 years being a positive impact, that we will be a year-round tourism community where during our winter seasons, we don't have the highs and the lows. And I think that would be very valuable very valuable here. I also think that we use our dollars in very wonderful ways now, and we continue that. We have given $25,000 to Pisgah Conservancy to build the missing link of the trail. So we have now full connectivity from Pisgah Forest to Bracken Mountain to Brevard and back to Pisgah. We've also given $100,000 to Conserving Carolinas to build the Acosta Trail. I also support in 5 years that we will have agreed to pay to share the occupancy tax and have given $1 million, and that we will see the Acosta Trail started through the support of tourism in that way. I also think the county's land that they own, that they purchased right by the French Broad River, could become a wonderful park, and tourism can support those initiatives because those are visitor enhancement projects.
Okay. All right, Ms. Kopeloff.
Thank you. Well, the key word with tourism is balance. We've got to have the balance because tourism is a critical part of our economy. And in 5 years, I still see it as being a very critical part of our economy. So we need to make sure that as we look to balance this, that we develop our infrastructure so that we can balance it, we can accommodate the tourists, and we can also make sure that our families that live here, our residents, have a high quality of life. So when I talk about the infrastructure, we need to make sure we've got the roads. We have to deal with the parking issue. We need to maybe create satellite parking areas outside the main part of town so that we don't have the traffic coming in, and maybe run tourist shuttle services around town. There are solutions that we can look at that would lessen the impact on our residents and on our infrastructure downtown. And we need to be creative in a lot of the ways that we look at it. I think we'll continue to develop when we get the Acosta Trail done, and that connects into our Estito Trail, so that we've got really a network across the city with bike boulevards, and then the trail around the city and all the way to Hendersonville. So tourism is still going to be a big part of that. So I think that we really need to look at how we market our tourism. We need to make sure that we try to that we really try to bring tourists here in the off season, that we protect during the high season the quality of life of our residents. Thank you.
Hein?
Thank you. And on days like today, you can see why tourism is so popular here. Absolutely perfect day, gorgeous. And we all enjoy that. Tourism is the jet fuel to our economy, but we've all said it and we agree on this. We need to strike a balance between tourism and what it does for our residents and how those returns go back to benefit the strategies and objectives that we have. The question was, how do you envision or see tourism in 5 years? It's going to grow as the paradigm with COVID and virtual working and all of those things are accelerating. This is a place that people want to be. So we've got to develop strategies to leverage the outcomes of tourism, make sure that all of our plans, the comprehensive land use plan of 2030, all of the things that we're trying to do as goals and objectives for our residents and to make this a more livable, affordable place, we take those tourism dollars and we inject those back into our local economy, into our local businesses, to our local infrastructure, so that residents benefit from that. Tourism is going to continue, and that's a good thing. It's really how do we go about taking that and leveraging it for the benefit of all of our residents.
Okay. All right, this next question, Ms. Kopeloff, you will go first. What is your top priority for economic development within Brevard city limits?
I believe we need to really concentrate on high technology and bringing people in for economic development that has a living wage and above living wage that offer career progression. I want to see our town have jobs where young people can grow up, they can stay here, and they can really make a career and they can live in our town. And so the real question is, how do we bring in development that has that type of career potential to it? And we've started to do that. We've targeted different industries. We've got sort of our medium-sized manufacturing plants. And I think we need to continue to do that. We need to have that mixture of the manufacturing, of the high tech. As COVID has shown, a lot of people can work from any location. You don't always have to have a storefront anymore. So I think we need to be very innovative in how we look at marketing our town, bringing in these entrepreneurs so that we can develop the jobs that allow our families to grow and stay and really have that high quality of life. We've concentrated a lot on our outdoor recreation. That is one of our big assets. I think we need to continue to look at how the outdoor recreation, the beautiful nature here, that is an economic driver that we need to continue to work and to promote as we bring in new jobs. Thank you.
Mr. Hein?
Well, I think the top priority for economic developments within the Brevard city limits is, diversifying the tax base, obviously, to take the pressure off the property owners to sustain all the services that we have. How do we do that? We do that by becoming the path of least resistance for new investment and growth. And the way you go about that is reviewing the rules, regulations, and often the unintended bureaucracy that gets in the way of businesses coming in and investing in our town. I really have, it's been interesting to see the growth that's occurred around us in areas like Mills River. We've got the Pratt and Whitney plant going up in Asheville, which ultimately is going to have 1,300 jobs. And we always talk about the constraints that we have, and they are real. But my question is, really, why not us? Why can't we be that place where business comes, where developers come, those in those niche industries, the virtual workers? Why can't we recruit? Why can't we aggressively go out and look for investment in our town where people can have living wage jobs and have the opportunity to remain here and for their children and families to do so if they so desire? So lots of opportunities there.
Okay. And Ms. Perkins?
There we go. The city's responsibility is about making sure we have a vibrant and healthy community that in turn will promote economic development. When the city creates a place that people want to live and we have housing options, then businesses will come here. It's about ensuring a superior quality of life. I will put a priority on completing the multi-use path. It's, again, we've let that sat for 10 years. It's got to be finished. That helps people want to live in a place where we have those kinds of amenities. I'll stay engaged with the county and the Economic Development Board, because we need to know who are they recruiting and what are those businesses' needs. Do we have the infrastructure, the water and sewer, and do we have build-ready products necessary for them if they want to come here? I will also support the Acoustic Trail because I think it comes back to quality of life. We also need to finish the 2002 land use plan. It's got to be updated and adopted. When we're working off of a plan that's 19 years old, how do we know how we want our city to grow and what direction we want it to go in? It's long overdue. It should have been updated 6 years ago, but we haven't done it because we don't have enough staff to and those kinds of issues need to be addressed. We also need to make sure that our roads and our streets are taken care of and in good and really good order. Our whole town should have connectivity. You should be able to walk from one end of town to the other and feel that it's a welcoming and inviting place and that it's safe. It is about the safety element as well.
Okay. All right, our next question. And Mr. Hein, you will go first. What responsibility does the city of Brevard have to improve access to good mental, physical, and behavioral health care?
Yeah, healthcare is something certainly near and dear to my heart, and mental, physical, and behavioral health, those are some of the areas most challenged and most taxed in our region. One of the things that we can do about that is to continue to engage our partners in the region who provide those services. The whole healthcare equation has been disrupted over the last several years in our small communities. We certainly know that the collective rug has been pulled out from under us. And so other entities have come in and tried to fill that gap here locally in not only our county, but in some others. And so I think really how you address that is going direct to the source and engaging those entities that say, okay, you know, what can we provide? Where are the gaps? We know where they are. There's community health assessments that are done every couple of years, and those shortcomings are identified in there. It's taking that assessment, breaking it down into its components, and then really going out and soliciting for partners that can engage with us to fill the gaps. There's tremendous need, and this impacts so many people in such profound ways, and it's something that we should be very much energized to pursue.
Thank you. Ms. Perkins?
You know, the sale of HCA to Mission has created chaos here in our community. And what it has also done is put a focus on healthcare here, which actually can be a good thing, that we are all talking about where our shortcomings are and what our needs are. But to be clear, Brevard has to have a very robust healthcare system. And no matter who's providing it. I'm very happy that we're seeing the competition when we've got Advent Health and Pardee coming into our community. I think those are very good things, because they will be able to add additional services to the areas that we need. And the city's role is a role of advocacy. We need to reach out to all of our partners, know what our shortcomings are, talk with them about what services that they can provide. I met with Pisgah Health Foundation so that I understand more about what they can do to help in the capacities that we're talking about, and what Dogwood Health Foundation can also bring with the dollars that will be spent back in our community and identifying the needs with our physical health, our mental health, and ways that we can encourage that. Blue Zones has been doing a really good job to get our local people more engaged, getting outside, eating healthier, making healthier choices. And those are all, when people get out and walk and they get out and engage, and those are the elements that address and begin to address some of the issues that we're talking about with mental and physical health and being an
Ms. Kopeloff?
This is a topic that's near and dear to my heart. I've been engaged for the last 2 years really in this topic. And I think the city plays a key role, because anything that is so fundamental to the quality of life of our citizens, such as healthcare, we need to be there. We need to be that advocate. I like to say we're the champion, and we're also the monitor of what's happening with healthcare in our community. And to do that, we've got to work with partners. We need to work with Pisgah Health Foundation, Blue Zones, two absolutely great partners that have recently arrived here. And we need to really look at planning how we can help them expand their reach into our community. We need to work with our nonprofits, and we need to work with our healthcare providers themselves. I meet quarterly with HCA to discuss where we are with healthcare in this community and to go over any issues. Not always successful. I will just admit that right off the bat. But I've also opened up channels with the North Carolina Attorney General's office so that we have a way to bring rural healthcare issues all the way up to Raleigh, because rural healthcare is really a challenge, and we need to look at what's happening to healthcare in our rural communities and our surrounding ones. So that's where that collaboration comes in. It's working with the county. It's working with the other counties that are experiencing the same thing. It's working with our nonprofits, and it's keeping that dialogue and that constant communication with our healthcare providers open. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and we are down to our final question of the evening. And so the first one to answer this will be Ms. Perkins. How would you expedite the completion of the trail system? And do you think there should be any additions to that system?
So the ways that I think, the city does need to expedite the multi-use path. And I think it has to do with establishing priorities. When we make it a priority, we can find those dollars to complete the multi-use path. We have found them when we built the trails when I was on city council before, we found dollars at the state level. I also think that we can go to Pisgah Health Foundation and Dogwood Health, because it is directly related to health when we get those pathways finished. And I think that applying for grants and looking at tourism and TDA could be another possibility to find those dollars as well. Yes, I do think that there are ways to expand that trail beyond the path that we have right now. But I think that comes to you do that through committee work. You do that also with community engagement, and that's one of the things that I'm a big advocate for as it comes to communication. Bringing our community together. We talk about what are our missing links? Where do we need to build additional trails? What other connectivities do we need to have? And as we become more dependent on bicycles and encourage people to ride bicycles and less dependent on our vehicles to get around town. And I think that should be a goal that we have. And encouraging. We have many young families that are riding their bikes, and we need to have them have the ability.
Ms. Kopeloff.
We need to leverage all the different types of funding that we can in order to expedite the trail. The city has just put $1 million actually to extending the trail this year, which is a massive amount of money. And it's going to actually take us quite a ways with that trail system. But we need to also look at grant funding. We have the RAISE grant that we put in that would allow us to do more trail work and would actually fund out the Equitably trail. We need to make sure that our city trail system connects to the Equitably trail. We also need to work hand in hand with the Department of Transportation, because an awful lot of this involves leveraging work that they are already doing. So when they're coming in and they're upgrading our roads, we need to make sure that they're adding those bike paths on trails, that we are adding in sidewalks. That's one of the things that we really can more smartly use our money if we do it in conjunction with projects that the Department of Transportation is already doing. I think we also need to make sure that our trail system feeds right into downtown so that people can go from the forest downtown to the hotels, that once you get here, if you're a tourist, you don't ever really have to get back in your car. You can get everywhere on your bicycle. Same thing, that making sure that we extend the trails to areas where people live and work, so that you can have a trail system that isn't just recreational, but is also something people can use as a work transportation network.
And Mr. Hein.
I think that the question was, in terms of expansion versus completion. In my mind, really what we need to do is complete the work we set out to do. And there's been a lot of effort in that regard, but some of that has stalled, and there's obviously a discussion about trying to finish those projects. And I think the way that you do that, budgets reflect priorities. And in this year's budget, there's $2 million in there for the Railroad Avenue project and the East Etoe Trail. That's 5.7% of our total budget. I think that reflects a heavy priority and an effort to get those things done. And I commend that. Those should always be reviewed every year in the context of other constraints and other spending. But that certainly reflects work that's going to happen relatively quickly. The other thing I think you can do, and it's been mentioned, but we've got some great partners here, the Blue Zone Project. Pisgah Health Foundation. There's other private and not-for-profit entities out there that we could partner with to help expedite the completion of these things. These trails are profound in terms of how they connect communities and the impact they can have on our neighborhoods. Tremendous opportunity here as well.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I believe that concludes the questioning portion of our forum. We will now enter the last segment where you will have opportunity to make your closing statements, and you have 90 seconds to do that. And so by random draw here, Ms. Perkins, you will go first.
Thank you. Brevard needs new leadership. It needs new energy and a sense of urgency to solve the challenges the city is facing. Brevard is a unique place, and it is our responsibility to keep it that way. We can't wait to see what happens and hope for the best. We can't set priorities. We can't set priorities as a community only to have elected officials decide which of those special interest projects get completed. And we can't wait any longer to fix the housing crisis that has gotten exponentially worse over the last 5 years and is now at a tipping point. I have the integrity, the experience, and the skills to do this job. I've been preparing for it my whole life. I'm a relationship builder, a planner, a problem solver, a motivator, and a business person. I seek out the best and the brightest, and I ask a lot of questions. I bring new ideas to the table and I make sure they get done. I've built parks, created master plans, and led the initial construction of the multi-use path. I've built businesses and I've brought businesses to town. I've gotten grant money for downtown revitalization. I've developed strategic plans for economic development, and I've crafted our community's vision. I will fight for progress right now because change has to be immediate. I promise to work with you to identify what our community priorities are, and I will listen to you. I will encourage participation, and I will foster dialogue. I am the right person for the right job.
Next is Ms. Kopeloff.
We've spent the last hour talking about some of the difficult challenges facing us. I'm running for mayor because I believe we need to focus on these challenges with strong, experienced leadership, teamwork, and vision. I've served in enough leadership positions to know that I don't personally have all the answers, but I do know how to confront the hard issues, how to bring together and build strong teams, how to lead those teams, how to collaborate with regional partners, and how to implement the solutions that we collectively develop. You can look at my website and see the education I have, the awards I've received, the accomplishments I'm proud of, and I encourage you to do so. But I want to mention the thing I am most proud of. That's the trust that I've earned across our community. My goal is to build connections, increase communications, and strengthen our community so that together we build the future we want for our families. As mayor, I will be there for the people of Brevard as your advocate, listening to your needs, ensuring those needs are the priorities that our city is focused on, and passionately leading our efforts to meet those challenges. Thank you.
And Mr. Hein.
When I think about the office of mayor and what it represents, it's really a humbling proposition to be even considered for a role where I could speak for you, where I could help be your voice, where I could ensure that your interests are represented and are at the table in every conversation that we have that relates to where we are now, but more importantly, where we want to go together. And so we've talked about lots of difficult issues, from housing to health care, other things that concern me in terms of how we spend your money, your tax dollars. But this is our hometown. And this is not about me. This is not about I. This is about you. And this is about how we approach our future together. It will require leadership. And that's something I've worked towards all my life. And I believe in the philosophy of servant leadership. I've been taught that and believe that's an effective way to serve this community and this home that we love. So I appreciate your time, and I enjoy these conversations because I learn from each of the candidates and from the questions. We've got tremendous opportunity ahead of us, and it's going to be up to all of us to leverage that and grow together. Thank you.
Thank all of you. And that concludes the candidate portion of the meeting. And Clark Lovelace from the Chamber of Commerce now would like to make a few closing comments.
Thanks. Part of the technical glitch, we're minus one computer, so I'm coming to the moderator station. I just want to quickly reiterate to all of the candidates, not just those here with us running for mayor, the same thing I said privately before this started. Thank you. You're volunteering to serve this community because I know you care, and I really do appreciate that you have made that decision, and I wish you all the best of luck. To those who watched, thank you very much for participating in this very important process. Elections in our country are one of the most patriotic and democratic things that we can do. Please go out and vote. And then finally, to all those who were a part of making this event happen, we appreciate it. We at the Brevard Transylvania Chamber of Commerce are happy to provide this to our community as a community service. And we look forward to continuing to be a part of this process as we move forward. With that, we will call this to a close. There will be options for seeing the recordings. Please visit brevardnchamber.org for more information. Again, thank you to everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thanks.